At 5:17 local time, the surface search radar changes behavior. Not a spike, not background noise, a clean return. On the bridge, no one speaks. At first, the track holds steady, slow, controlled, deliberate. Then the numbers begin to shift. Speed rises, bearing tightens. The contact is no longer simply crossing the display, it is lining up. Surface contact, new acceleration. The words are calm, routine, logged exactly as procedure demands. But steel does not accelerate like that by accident. The sea is calm, the horizon is clear. To the naked eye, nothing has changed. But inside the ship, the systems already understand what the eye cannot see. The contact is closing from the forward quadrant. Its course is now almost directly opposite the carrier's heading. Distance falls in quiet, unforgiving steps. Closest point of approach recalculates once, then again. Smaller. No AIS, no reply to the first hail, no change in course. On the flight deck, crews pause in the middle of their movements. Not because an alarm has sounded, there is no alarm yet. They pause because of timing. Everyone at sea knows when something stops being background traffic and starts looking intentional. The contact keeps accelerating, 20 knots, then 24. That is when the watch officer looks up from the console. Not panicked, focused. Recommend logging for unsafe maneuvering. The captain does not raise his voice. He does not have to.
His eyes stay on the display, watching two vectors draw closer in a way they were never meant to. A naval vessel does not run straight toward a carrier group without a reason. Even reckless crews understand that, unless they want to be noticed. The first hail goes out over bridge-to-bridge frequencies. Clear, professional, controlled. No reply. A second hail follows. Same result. Through long-range optics, the silhouette begins to sharpen. Small hull, military profile. Too clean to be civilian. Too deliberate to be lost. Unidentified surface contact. For now, that label remains. Inside the operations center, the track is elevated. Sensors shift priority. Nothing openly hostile yet. No precision targeting radar. No visible system activation. But the geometry tells its own story. The vessel is not shadowing. It is not pacing. It is driving straight down the carrier's path. Distance continues to shrink. At this range, a mistake becomes an incident. An incident becomes a headline.
And a headline can become something no one can pull back. Still no flags, still no response, still closing. The carrier does not alter course. That decision is deliberate. Course changes are messages, and messages can be misunderstood. Sometimes the safest move is to hold steady and force the other side to explain itself. The contact explains nothing. On the bridge wing, binoculars rise. The hull cuts cleanly through the water, its wake spreading wider as speed increases again. The bow lifts just enough to confirm heavy throttle. This is not drift. This is not curiosity. This is an approach. A quiet order moves through the ship. Not broadcast, not shouted. Stations adjust. Systems transition from passive monitoring to active tracking. Everything remains controlled. Everything remains within procedure. The contact is now inside the range where intent matters more than capability. Another hail goes unanswered. Then, finally, something changes. The radar suite aboard the approaching vessel comes alive. Not a targeting lock, search mode, but active. That detail is logged instantly, time-stamped, saved. Signals do not lie, even when people do. Passive observation has ended. The other ship is now looking back, measuring, confirming what it already knows. They see the carrier. They see the escorts, and they keep coming. On the bridge, the captain gives a single nod. Maintain course, record everything. No threats, no raised voices, no escalation.
Just documentation.
The distance closes to the point where every maneuver becomes deliberate. The water between the two ships narrows into a strip that no longer feels neutral. This is the moment when accidents stop sounding believable. The contact holds speed, still no response. Whatever happens next will not look like confusion. It will look like a decision made in full view, under full observation, with every sensor awake and watching. And for the first time since the contact appeared, one thing becomes clear to everyone on the bridge. This ship did not wander into the carrier group. It aimed for it. At 0524, the classification changes. Not on instinct, on data. The surface contact's profile resolves through long-range optics, hull shape, mast configuration, deck layout. The silhouette matches known military architecture. Not a patrol boat, not a civilian vessel operating in the wrong place. This is purpose-built steel. Nationality confirmed, Iranian. The confirmation moves through the ship without ceremony. No reaction, no commentary. Flags do not change physics, and they do not change procedure, but they change context. From this moment forward, every second carries more weight. The Iranian naval vessel does not slow. Its bow cuts deeper into the water as throttle holds. The wake spreads wide and confident, the signature of a vessel being driven with purpose. On the forward deck, movement becomes visible. Figures reposition. They space out. Hands settle where hands do not usually rest during routine transit. Still, no answer to the hails. That silence is not accidental. Naval crews are trained to answer the radio, even when they want to look firm. Silence is its own message. It says the message has already been delivered, and the answer will come through action. The operations center begins a tighter tracking loop. Bearings update faster. Range gates narrow. Closest point of approach is calculated again. Smaller. The Iranian ship's radar emissions sharpen. Power increases. The sweep tightens. It is still not a full precision tracking mode, but it is moving closer. The difference is subtle, but not to trained ears. This is no longer simple awareness. This is measurement. Distance, speed, angle, alignment. They are building a picture with purpose. On the carrier's bridge, the captain remains still. He watches the plot, not the ship itself. The plot does not blink. It tells a story that optics cannot. A vessel that holds course while bringing its radar to life knows exactly what it is doing. Another hail goes out. Calm, direct, professional. No reply. The carrier strike group does not scatter. Escorts maintain spacing. Formation discipline holds. There is strength in refusing to react too early. Sudden moves invite confusion. Predictability keeps the situation controlled. And now, that predictability becomes pressure. The Iranian naval vessel is well inside a range where its actions can no longer be explained as coincidence. If this were a navigation error, it would have corrected by now. If this were a communications issue, a radio call would have come. Neither happens. The intent is becoming clear. On deck, long-range cameras capture everything. The timestamp rolls forward without emotion. This footage may never appear on television, but it will matter later, when questions are asked and stories begin to change. Then the forward deck mount on the Iranian ship shifts. Only a few degrees, not enough to commit to anything, just enough to be noticed. That movement is logged. On the American side, there is no matching motion, no visible response from the deck systems, no sudden show of force. Restraint is not hesitation. It is discipline. And discipline has power of its own. Inside the operations center, a quiet exchange confirms what everyone already understands. This is no longer shadowing. Agreed. Shadowing stays parallel, Shadowing keeps distance. Shadowing answers the radio. This is something else. The helicopter detachment is notified, but not sent airborne. Pilots move to standby, helmets clipped, rotors still. Presence is prepared, not displayed. There is no rush. The moment has not crossed that line yet. The Iranian ship holds speed, then increases again. 26 knots. That pushes it near the edge of its comfortable operating envelope. In these conditions, it is spending fuel to stay on this line. Spending margin.
Spending options.
From above, the geometry is unmistakable. One ship pressing, one ship holding. Every mile closed without a response tightens the box, not around the carrier, but around the story the approaching vessel may later try to tell. If they turn away now, the record will show everything. If they keep coming, the record will show even more. The Iranian radar sweeps again, stronger this time. The electronic warfare team logs the frequency, the pattern, the dwell time.
Every signal is captured, categorized, and archived.
Information is building faster than tension. And information lasts longer. The sea remains calm. The sky remains clear. Nothing flashes. Nothing breaks the surface calm. But intent has moved from unclear to undeniable. On the bridge, the captain finally speaks. Not louder, not sharper, just precise. Maintain course. Continue recording. Because whatever happens next, this moment will define it. The approach is no longer a question. It is a decision in progress. At 0531, the geometry tightens beyond tolerance. The Iranian naval vessel continues to close, now well inside the range where reaction time begins to matter more than stated intent. At this distance, even a minor course change carries meaning. Every degree matters. Every knot is read. Closest point of approach updates again. Smaller. The approach is no longer simply direct. It is deliberate.
The Iranian ship adjusts its heading by just enough to keep the carrier dead ahead.
Not parallel, not offset, straight in.
That adjustment is logged. Inside the operations center, the track is upgraded again. Sensors stop treating the contact as background traffic and begin treating it as an active maneuvering actor. The system does not assume intent. It does not need to. It only needs to know that the other ship is now shaping the encounter. The Iranian radar emissions rise again. Power increases. The sweep tightens. Repetition grows faster.
Still not a full precision mode, but close enough that the difference is no longer comforting. This is the phase where intent stops being guessed. It becomes measurable. On the bridge, the carrier's speed remains unchanged. Course remains steady. This is not stubbornness, it is control. Predictability narrows the other ship's options. Anything that happens from here belongs entirely to the approaching vessel. A third hail is transmitted. Shorter this time, more direct. Then silence. And now that silence feels different. Earlier, there was still room for ambiguity. Now there is pressure. The Iranian ship is no longer simply missing the radio calls. It is choosing not to answer them. That distinction matters. On the forward deck of the Iranian vessel, movement increases. Crew spacing widens. Figures reposition closer to the rail. They are not relaxed. They are not rushed. They are ready. The forward deck mount remains unattended, but uncovered.
Capability is being shown without being fully brought into play. That choice is documented. At 0534, the carrier's helicopter detachment receives the signal.
Stand by to launch.
No sirens, no announcement, just motion. Pilots step onto the deck. Rotor crews move with practiced efficiency. Every movement is controlled, familiar, rehearsed. The blades remain still. The helicopter does not lift yet, and that matters. Not launching is just as intentional as launching. It says one thing clearly: we are prepared, not provoked.
The Iranian ship keeps coming.
Distance now compresses so quickly that the plot updates feel almost continuous. Closest point of approach is no longer theoretical.
It is approaching fast. Inside the operations center, a quiet voice cuts through the steady rhythm of data. Contact is maintaining intercept geometry. That phrase carries weight. It means the approach is being actively managed, not simply allowed to happen. It means someone on the other bridge is watching the same numbers and choosing not to break the line. Then the helicopter begins to spin up. Not in a rush, not for drama. Measured. Rotor wash rolls across the deck, lifting spray and sending a visible signal across the water. This is not an overflight. It is not a display meant to provoke. It is controlled presence, lawful, visible, and impossible to miss. The helicopter lifts and holds low, offset from the formation. It remains inside American formation space. It does not close on the Iranian ship.
It does not make an aggressive move. Cameras activate, sensors focus. The aircraft becomes another part of the record. The Iranian radar reacts. Another sweep comes through, slightly faster, slightly stronger, logged. From the helicopter's optics, the Iranian breach is now clearly visible. Reflective windows, figures inside, movement behind the glass. The ship's course remains unchanged. No flags, no lights, no signal offered. The carrier group still does nothing that can be framed as escalation. No speed change, no turn, no visible show of force. That restraint increases the pressure more than any sudden maneuver could. At 05:38, the Iranian ship reaches the edge of the invisible line, where accidents become difficult to believe. At this point, any further closing would need an explanation the data may not support. A visible optical cue appears briefly near the Iranian bridge windows. Not harmful, not destructive, not a threat. A clear point of attention, a message without sound. Then the broadcast follows. Calm, clear, recorded. You are operating unsafely. Alter course immediately. The message is repeated, first in English, then in Farsi. For the first time, movement on the Iranian bridge changes. Figures shift. One steps forward, another turns away from the glass. The forward wake shortens slightly. Not enough to disengage, enough to show hesitation. The encounter has reached its highest point. Nothing has been launched. Nothing has crossed the final line. Nothing has broken procedure. But the entire moment has narrowed to one question. Who adjusts first? And at this distance, adjusting is not weakness, it is survival. At 05:42, the first change appears. Not a turn, not a radio call, a reduction in wake. It is subtle, barely visible unless someone is watching for it. But the helicopter's sensors catch it immediately. The white water behind the Iranian ship shortens. Throttle eases, speed begins to bleed off. 26 knots becomes 24. That drop is logged. The course does not change yet. The bow still points toward the carrier group, but the force in the water is different now. This is no longer a hard approach. It is a search for an exit, a way to step back without looking like retreat. On the Iranian deck, personnel begin to move away from the rail. One figure steps back from the forward deck mount. Another turns inward and disappears below the bridge line. These are not dramatic movements. They are defensive ones. The helicopter holds position. No advance, no pursuit. Its presence remains steady and unblinking. Cameras continue to roll. The optical cue is off now. The message has already been delivered. At 5:44, the Iranian ship reduces speed again, 22 knots. The bow dips slightly as pressure eases. The wake narrows. The water between the ships stops collapsing and begins slowly to stabilize. This is the breakpoint. On the carrier's bridge, no one celebrates, no one speaks. Breakpoints are fragile. Pressure is maintained until separation is undeniable. Then the Iranian ship makes its first lateral adjustment. 2 degrees, then 3. A gentle drift away from the carrier's center line. So subtle it almost looks reluctant. That heading change is recorded with the same precision as the earlier acceleration. It matters just as much. For the first time since contact began, the geometry is no longer an intercept. It becomes a near-parallel track. Still close, still visible, but no longer converging.
Then the radio crackles. A voice finally comes through, measured, formal, carefully neutral.
United States naval vessel. We are conducting routine patrol operations in proximity to Iranian waters.
The wording is deliberate. No apology, no acknowledgement of unsafe maneuvering, no recognition of the carrier's right of transit. Just enough language to preserve the story they need to tell. The response from the American bridge is immediate and exact.
You are operating in international waters. Your actions are being recorded. Maintain safe separation.
Nothing more. No debate, no raised tone, no escalation. The helicopter remains in orbit for another long minute. Not because it has to, but because presence reinforces clarity. The Iranian ship continues its slow lateral drift, increasing distance foot by foot, meter by meter. Speed drops again, 19 knots. The forward deck system is now fully covered. Activity on deck quiets. The bridge windows reflect only empty sky.
This is disengagement. Careful, deliberate, and fully observed. At 0548, the closest point of approach begins to increase. That single number confirms what the visuals already suggest. The danger window is closing. The moment that could have become something much larger has passed. The helicopter receives the signal to withdraw. Not hurried, not abrupt. It climbs smoothly, banks away, and returns toward the carrier. Sensors remain active until the last possible second. Nothing is wasted.
Nothing is missed. On the Iranian ship, one final gesture appears. A figure on deck raises an arm, palm open. Universal, maritime, wordless. The carrier group does not respond. Professional distance is maintained. By 5:50, separation is no longer symbolic. It is real. 6 nautical miles and widening. The Iranian vessel now runs a steady parallel course. No longer pressing, no longer testing. The sea returns to stillness. But the record remains. Every signal, every heading change, every second of silence. This was not a victory display. It was not an encounter settled by force. It was a high-pressure moment resolved at the edge of escalation, where discipline mattered more than dominance. On the bridge, the captain watches the track drift farther away. Then he nods once. Resume normal operations. Because in this encounter, nothing broke the calm. And that was the point. By 0602, the separation is complete. The Iranian naval vessel holds a steady parallel course, the distance widening with each passing minute. Its speed has stabilized. Its radar signature softens, then returns to normal maritime navigation levels. The forward deck is quiet now. No visible crew topside. No movement near the forward systems. From the carrier's bridge, the track is downgraded. Not forgotten, not dismissed. Filed. The helicopter settles back onto the flight deck without ceremony. Rotors spin down. Sensors go safe. Data continues moving long after the aircraft itself is still.
Every second of footage, every signal pattern, every course correction is already mirrored across internal systems, cataloged, preserved. Nothing about this encounter ends when the ships separate. On the surface, the sea looks unchanged. Calm water, clear horizon. No visible aftermath, no incident reports waiting to be written. To an outside observer, it might look as if nothing happened at all. Inside the ship, no one believes that. The operations center begins the quiet work that follows restraint. Timelines are rebuilt to the second. Radar sweeps are matched with optical frames. Communication logs are checked against maneuvering data. The story is assembled without emotion, without exaggeration, without adjectives. Just time, distance, course, signal, silence, and the shape of a decision that almost went too far. What emerges from the record is simple. The Iranian vessel accelerated directly toward a carrier strike group. It ignored repeated radio calls.
It brought its radar systems active while closing distance. And it reduced speed only after sustained observation, presence, and documentation. No interpretation is needed. There are no celebrations on the bridge, no raised voices, no victory language. Professional crews do not celebrate moments that could have gone badly. They acknowledge the outcome, record the facts, and move forward. The carrier never changed course. That detail matters. A course change would have rewritten the geometry.
It would have created uncertainty. It would have given someone else room to claim pressure, retreat, or misunderstanding. Holding course kept the burden of explanation exactly where it belonged, on the approaching vessel. As the Iranian ship fades into the distance, its wake flattening into the surrounding sea, the carrier group slowly returns to its internal rhythm. Aircraft resume scheduled operations. Escorts maintain spacing. Watches rotate. The day continues. But the encounter does not disappear. In modern naval operations, restraint is not passive. It is active, intentional, and documented. The absence of a visible response does not mean the absence of consequence. It means the consequence moves into another space. Records, analysis, timelines, evidence. Every professional Navy understands this. What happened during those 45 minutes will not be remembered for what was used. It will be remembered for what was not.
Because in the narrow space between signaling and escalation, discipline decides outcomes. Not size, not speed, not confidence. Discipline. The Iranian vessel approached as if proximity itself created leverage. It left having learned that proximity cuts both ways. Being seen, measured, and recorded can carry more weight than being directly challenged. The carrier group did not chase a reaction. It did not turn the moment into a spectacle. It did not add unnecessary pressure. It let the facts stand on their own. By 6:30, the contact is no longer tactically relevant. Distance has erased the immediate concern. The truck drifts toward the edge of the display and eventually disappears beyond the horizon. But the record remains intact. For the crew aboard the carrier, this was not an anomaly. It was a reminder. Modern naval power is not defined only by aircraft on deck or systems held in reserve. It is defined by control. Control of space. Control of tempo, control of escalation. The most dangerous moment passed quietly because everyone involved understood where the line was, and one side chose not to cross it. No visible aftermath, no damage, no public statement needed, just a carrier holding course in open water, and an Iranian naval vessel turning away with a version of events the data will never fully support. That is how some confrontations end. Not with noise, but with discipline.